Hi, my name is Dr. Ishani Rao, and I'm an NHS GP, a conservation medic, and an animal rights activist. I'm honoured to be hosting sessions for Protect the Wild so that we can best look after our mental health whilst effectively advocating for animals and for the planet. In this video, we'll be focusing on trauma. I'll be discussing what trauma is and the signs and symptoms, the difference between trauma and post traumatic stress disorder, traumatic experiences specifically related to animal rights activists, considerations when accessing mental health support, and some coping strategies and treatments. We'll be performing some simple techniques to manage traumatic experiences, including a visualization technique, breathing exercises, and a meditation. We'll also be discussing some sensory techniques which are useful to calm down overactive nervous systems. These are some of the methods that I've learned from working with patients suffering from severe post traumatic stress, including during my training at the rather eerie Bethlehem Hospital, the oldest psychiatric institution in the world. I've also used these therapies effectively with my patients in refugee camps who've been displaced by stressful experiences such as war or natural disaster. As always, I will end with resources that you might find valuable to recover from trauma on your animal activism journey. This webinar follows on from our video about burnout. Although burnout is a separate mental health issue in itself, and symptoms can be different from those experiencing trauma, there can be an overlap in this where traumatic experiences can trigger burnout. Burnout can also make it harder to recover from trauma. Please do refer back to the recommendations that I made in the video, including to hold organizations accountable, speak up and escalate when you're not being adequately supported, ask for help. Don't suffer in silence, as people might not be aware that you're struggling and they may be able to provide you with available resources, including counseling, check in sessions, mentoring, or being given extra time to perform your work. Take a break, as we know that when we're overwhelmed, we can't think straight or perform our best. This could be a short term break, as even taking 10 minutes away can give you a fresh perspective, or taking a longer break and coming back to a project when you feel ready to. Building community and communicating with like minded people who understand your frustrations. Not feeling guilty for keeping up activities that you love that aren't directly related to activism, and taking time to do the things that excite you. Focusing on our wins, as practicing gratitude can allow us to feel naturally happier, more satisfied with our achievements, and hopeful about the future. Making time for self care, whatever that looks like for you, but we should prioritize time to look after ourselves on a regular basis. And everyday activism. So, appreciating the values of small actions such as wearing slogans, putting up stickers, or supporting ethical ventures. Let's come back to focus on trauma, specifically in animal rights activists. According to the UK Trauma Council, trauma refers to the way that some distressing events are so extreme or intense that they overwhelm a person's ability to cope, resulting in a lasting negative impact. I found a wonderful quote from Viktor Frankl, an Austrian neurologist, psychologist, and Holocaust survivor. Interestingly, he founded a type of psychotherapy that really resonates with me. It describes the search for life's meaning as the main human motivational force and our ability to endure suffering and find happiness through a sense for purpose. He said, an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior. Many of you may be exposed to traumatic experiences when entering slaughterhouses, shelters, labs, or when attending vigils. Many of you witness violence from humans to beautiful animals, for example, during hunts. A number of our wonderful animal rights activists actually worked in slaughterhouses before making huge realizations and life changes. Everyday activities can also be traumatic for some. I even find it distressing to walk past dead animals in a supermarket. It's normal for our nervous systems to be triggered by all of this. Just because the majority of people support these actions does not mean that they should be considered normal or acceptable behavior. Let's look at what happens to our body when we are under stress. Some of the effects that you might start to notice when your sympathetic nervous system is activated include a dry mouth, muscle tension, palpitations, sweating, and hyperventilation. Physiological effects that occur that we can't feel include an increase in blood pressure, diversion of blood flow away from the skin and the gut, and the release of excitatory neurotransmitters such as adrenaline, acetylcholine, and cortisol. In the short term, this fight or flight mechanism can actually help us to perform well, escape from, or even survive in stressful situations. However, if our nervous system remains in this state of overdrive, our bodies can develop a number of chronic conditions that may become difficult to shift. Some of these are similar to the stages of burnout, which we've covered in our first webinar. Poorly adaptive responses to trauma can include being overly aware about our surroundings, feeling numb, having nightmares or flashbacks involving the event, being easily startled, experiencing panic attacks, and feeling so emotionally overwhelmed that we might even avoid certain situations. You might have heard of the psychiatric condition post traumatic stress disorder. This can be diagnosed when symptoms of trauma last for over a month and when they are severe enough to interfere with aspects of daily life, such as work or relationships. It's really important to mention that everybody will respond differently to traumatic experiences within the animal rights movement, and that your response to trauma may vary depending on other factors, including genetics, coping strategies, additional stressors, and your support systems. We're now going to perform a few really simple activities to train our bodies to calm down when we are in a state of nervous system overdrive. It's great for us to practice stress management activities at a time when you're feeling relaxed and in a safe space, much like a drill or a test run, so that you can more easily engage these techniques when there's a genuine threat. If you are able to, when you are feeling very stressed, placing your hands in ice, even on frozen food in the freezer, can reset our nervous systems. You could go one step further by taking a cold water shower or going for a cold water swim. Coming back to your sense of smell is a really simple method of redirecting our senses away from a stressful or traumatic thought or memory. You could carry around essential oils for this, but it's also effective to inhale deeply into the scent of a perfume, flowers, clean laundry, or a cup of herbal tea or coffee. Finding visual aids can also be very calming when you feel triggered by a situation. So this point says colour. Some people find trying to identify as many objects of a certain colour helpful, for example, seeing how many yellow items you can see around you. In our online interactive session, we will practice a tapping technique, which is a great way of physically moving and focusing on various body parts to calm down our senses and reconnect with the present moment. Movement practices include dancing or running in moderation, and they're incredible ways of healing our nervous systems. Coming back to our breathing is a really basic way of resetting our fear response, which is controlled by the amygdala in the brain. When you feel your body switching into a state of heightened adrenaline at a time when remaining calm would be more beneficial, then you can always focus on your breath. This will stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the chill part, also known as rest and digest, which is opposite to the sympathetic fight or flight response. It will also bring your attention away from the traumatic experience and allow you to focus on what you can control in this present moment. So let's practice box breathing, which is in a simple pattern of 4, 4, 4, and 4. You take a deep breath in through your nose for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out through your mouth for 4 seconds, and hold for 4 seconds. Let's try it together. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Now, just continue to breathe normally. Breathing practices are a really ancient form of meditation and can stimulate the flow of oxygen around our body and our brain when we feel tense. We will be practicing 2 other methods of breathing, 4-6-8 and lion's breath, during our online interactive session about trauma response. Let's talk about visualization techniques. I realized that I needed to seek professional help for my mental health after an endless night shift in the hospital where we performed CPR on a young dead patient for around an hour. I wanted to prevent any poor coping strategies from developing when I realized that I was losing sleep and I was in a state of fight or flight after this series of triggering events. I was fortunate enough to be able to access free therapy for frontline NHS workers through an amazing charity called Frontline 19. I had around 8 sessions over a few months, which I found incredibly valuable in reframing my mindset from one of stress, avoidance, and anxiety to one of acceptance and motivation. My therapist helped me to desensitize my sympathetic nervous system, actually through hypnotherapy, which I was rather skeptical about when we started. We will talk more about finding a suitable and supportive mental health practitioner in our online interactive session. I understand that there can be barriers and concerns to this, and that many conventional practitioners may not understand our cause. It can be so difficult to know how much to tell our therapists when we are working on various projects. For now, I'd like to perform a visualization exercise with you, one that really helped me to continue to place myself in potentially traumatic spaces. Again, I want to remind you that this is a safe space and that where you are right now does not pose any threat. Take a few deep breaths, and I invite you to think about a situation that you have found traumatic. Perhaps it's a heated conversation. Perhaps it's during a police or court case. Perhaps you found yourself directly exposed to abuse to animals. Put yourself in that position where you feel angry, frustrated, and scared. Now, I want you to move all of that energy and all of those brain chemicals to visualize your ideal way of responding to that situation. Imagine yourself responding calmly and effectively. Focus on your heart rate lowering. Imagine your adrenaline and your cortisol levels just flowing away. Visualize yourself being the person that you can be in that stressful situation. Now, just focus on your ideal reaction for 10 seconds. You can use these mental simulations to rewire your neural networks to find a sense of calm in triggering environments. I want you to be prepared for the worst case scenario and to be able to make the best of it in the event that it does occur. I want to share with you a meditation that I wrote for the wonderful Animal Rising that I always read at my mental health workshops. I used to think that people or I would get bored of this mindfulness practice, but every time I do it, I find that my body anticipates a relaxation response and it becomes even more valuable with time. There's evidence from brain imaging studies that even practicing 5 minutes of meditation a day can make structural changes to your brain, strengthen neural pathways, and relieve our sympathetic nervous systems. There's an old Zen proverb which says, you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes a day unless you are too busy, and then you should sit for an hour. So, please come into a relaxed position with me. Take a deep breath in for 4 seconds and then hold for 6. Now close your eyes and breathe out for 8. Relax and notice your body releasing tension from your forehead, your neck, your shoulders, your arms, your hands, your stomach, your hips, your legs, your feet, and your toes, anywhere that might store unnoticed and built up muscle stress. Feel the connection between your body and the space around you. Accept any warmth, any cold, any smells, or any sounds. Let the excitement and adrenaline of today fade away as you become grounded in this present moment. You are exactly where you need to be right now at this point in time. You're focusing on yourself, on any thoughts or sensations that you're experiencing, and that's completely okay. You've been focusing so hard on helping each other, on tasks and challenges, on helping the non human animals and the planet. But it's time to bring your attention to your mind, to still your thoughts, and to find a sense of calm. Focus again on your breathing with slow, deep waves that will naturally reduce your heart rate and your blood pressure and your cortisol and your stress levels. Find appreciation and gratitude for all of the incredible things that your body and your mind does, for all of the difficult conversations, for the beautiful wildlife that we help, for the environment, for all of the people that might not even know it yet. Bring yourself back to your breathing to allow yourself the calm that you deserve in this busy life. Promise yourself, with each breath, a little bit more time for you to find this sense of calm again. Promise to approach challenges with fire and love and laughter, and to allow yourself to rest when you need to. I thank you for your incredible work and for joining me here today, and I invite you to open up your eyes whenever you feel ready. You may have noticed that I've maintained the theme of gardening, of course, because gardening is fun and being in nature is therapeutic, but also because our neural networks are much like the branches and roots of trees. I want to remind you that we have the ability to train our brains and to grow the areas that we want to focus on and let the parts that are not constructive wither. Your brain can recover and heal from trauma. And sometimes people who go through traumatic experiences become even more motivated and effective on our activism journeys. Sometimes this does need professional help. So, again, I will be discussing ways to find supportive and understanding mental health practitioners during our interactive session. If you ever find that you just can't cope anymore, for example, if you're feeling suicidal or want to harm yourself, then here are some useful places to turn. There are a number of therapists, counselors, psychiatrists, and life coaches who are animal rights activists. You can find them online, and some of them do offer introductory free sessions. If it's an acute emergency, then please do speak to your GP, who may refer you to A&E directly to form a mental health plan with the crisis team. There are a number of charities which have phone lines which are easy to reach, including the Samaritans, Calm, and Mind Mental Health Charity. Sometimes you might not feel like talking out loud, so you can message Shout, which is the UK's first and only free confidential 24-hour text messaging service for anyone who is struggling to cope. Of course, reaching out to supportive friends and family members can be incredibly helpful. We will discuss in the interactive sessions whether it would be useful to have some allocated one to one sessions with me in the future. I'll just leave you with some resources which I found incredibly valuable. There are brilliant articles about trauma from Animal Save Movement and in the blog Animal and Mind that are available online and are worth reading. I would recommend listening to podcasts such as Animal Aid's Conversations on Compassion and Paw and Order by Animal Justice, which remind me that other people are going through similar struggles in the animal rights movement and are finding coping strategies in an unjust world. There's an amazing webinar from In Defense of Animals called 10 Keys to Staying Positive Facing Animal Abuse with Dr. Will Tuttle, which you can watch on YouTube. I love the work of Dr. Gabor Mate if you're interested in finding more about trauma in general, and he's written a lot of amazing books, but also has a lot of videos and talks available to watch online. I hope that you found this workshop useful and that you can join for our upcoming interactive session about trauma, where we will be able to network with other activists and discuss how we're feeling. As always, I thank you for your incredible work within the animal rights activism movement and in making the world a kinder place.